What I think about all the time when I wake up, when I go to bed, and I dream about it occasionally, is are we changing the perception of downtown? So this is our North Star. Everything that we do, we try to be very disciplined and focused and make sure that we can draw a bright line to this question, are we changing the perception of downtown? So with that, I will pause and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Thompson? I don't have everybody up here on the same screen, so. Questions? Councilmember Bunker.
How's it going changing the perception of downtown?
Slow but steady is what I would say. In the examples that we have of that is we have had an increased participation from real estate developers in the CRA sites. So we have an RFP out now for an apartment development at South Washington and MLK. And when we released that RFP before, we only had one response, and it was 60%, area median income, completely subsidized tax credit project. And then over the past year and a half, I've had many more developers approaching me about developing that property with mixed income. Our businesses, our restaurants are more stabilized. And we were able to, through the food and drink grant program, actually get property owners who matched 50-50 the build out of spaces. So it's slow but steady.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, what I see is we used to spend a lot of money bringing people down for events once a month, and we'd get a lot of people down, but there wasn't anything to bring people back during those times. And between the events and now with the street closure, we're finding that we're really it's getting around in the community how nice downtown is not for the entertainment, but every night, for the restaurant and the activity that's happening on the streets, which is, I think, really, really positive. I haven't seen anything like this in all the years I've been involved. It seems to me that that's been the biggest turning point.
Agreed. Amanda, a couple things. I mean, you point out the four main tasks or strategies for 2018. Going forward, when we do this, can we try to put some, I know we had 600 units that we were hoping to permit, and 100 million in private investment. But I'd like to actually have some more numbers that we can look back at and say, we're getting close, or, we didn't really quite hit the mark. So a couple other things. You talked about having a lack of confidence in the market. And I'm curious, have we done any professional surveying of Clearwater residents and surrounding towns? I think we need to define better what the market is. Who are we really appealing to? Does that go to Bel Air Bluffs, up to Dunedin, east to Safety Harbor? Define what that market is, and then do a professional survey of what people's impressions are, so that then we can go back over time and see if those opinions are changing. If the marketing that we're doing and the private sector promotion that the restaurants are doing, or the Capitol Theater, are opinions changing? Because if they aren't,
Right.
then we kind of need to shift our focus. So have we done professional surveys? And if so, what were kind of the borders of those?
We have not done statistically significant surveys. I know the community survey that's done every other year, they had a question about downtown, which, Joelle can weigh in more. What would you like to see downtown? Would you come downtown if A, B, C, D happened? but the CRA has not conducted one. And from what you're describing, we'd probably split that out between, there's, as you know, there's a difference between someone who's going to build an apartment complex versus someone would I come and eat out at a restaurant, right? So we'd probably need to divide those audiences when we're surveying of who are we really focusing on, because they're going to be looking at slightly different things. So for the investors, we've done a lot of focus groups, small focus groups, and talked to real estate brokers, but it's been a lot more one-on-one conversation. And we certainly could survey. Some of that happened through the HRNA work, but again, not a fill out a paper online form and track every year, but we can do that.
Well, I mean, we've budgeted a fair amount for marketing and other things, and public relations. I mean, I think one of the most important things is to figure out messaging. And if we don't figure out what we want to message because we haven't determined what people's hangups are. And I mean, I did a survey when I ran this time. We sent out to 23,000 households. I got about 3,200 back. There is a distinct pattern of what people are concerned with. Right. And so we need to somehow change that narrative with folks. And I think it is changing, as the vice mayor pointed out. Having Cleveland closed, I think, has been really beneficial. But the two things that I came away with from your report is, I want to put some metrics in that we can actually measure trend. Mm-hmm. And then I would like to do something more specifically with some surveying so that we can target what we're trying to change. Councilmember Hamilton.
Well, I'm gonna come at it from a little different angle, because I look at our downtown, our CRA area is much more than just the 500 and 600 block of Cleveland. And the 600 block is awesome. The 500 block is primarily awesome. But when you extend beyond that, it gets hit and miss at best. Now, as we all know, many properties in our CRA area have changed ownership in the last couple of years. Now, me as a businessman, and I think Vice Mayor Albritton and most people that are watching, if I'm going to buy a piece of commercial property in a CRA zone, a downtown area, or anywhere, if it's a commercial piece of property, I'm not going to buy that piece of property without knowing what I want to do with it once I gain control of it. And once I gain control of it, it's going to take me a minimal amount of time to be standing in the planning department of the city of Clearwater, for example, to say, here's what I want to build. Can I get a permit? And go through the process. We're not experiencing that. People are buying commercial properties and making no effort to put something on it. Is there a way for us to contact each and every one of those new property owners and just flat out ask, what is your plan for that property? And if you have a plan, is there anything we can do to help you? And if all we get is, well, I don't really know what I want to do with it, then I want to ask the question, then why the hell did you buy it?
Are you going to put it in those terms?
Basically, I would. I wouldn't be afraid to put it in those terms. So, I'm talking about the elephant in the room here, folks. These are questions people want answers to. And the questions need to be asked. So
I'm all for doing that survey, Councilmember Hamilton.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks.
So our approach to do that is we are constructing basically a slide deck, and it has all the demographic information about downtown, and then we're sending that to the property owners and saying, look, if you send us your property information, what you want on there, you will be part of this massive advertising campaign that's happening November through February. So we want to ask that question also with a little bit of a carrot. to say, if you have information to share with us, you're going to benefit from a massive marketing campaign. That's the approach that, we were going to take first. But I agree, having worked in land use for a long time, it's very frustrating when the new or old property owners don't seem to have a vision for their property or want to actually do anything.
Can I ask a question about that slide deck that you just mentioned that has demographic information on it? What type of demographic information is it going to have? And you said that when people respond, first of all, you can't compel them to respond, correct? And then if they do respond, they'll benefit from a massive marketing campaign. Well, we have a number of, empty storefronts. So they don't need any marketing campaign because there's nothing there. You know what I mean? So what kind of demographic information are you asking for on that deck?
Sure. So the marketing is for investors and investment funds. So they're marketing to get someone to invest in their property or to start a business, not marketing what currently exists in their property. And it's a laundry list of items, that I'll email all of you, but our population, the per capita income, the education levels, the job sectors that thrive here, the kind of typical economic development information.
Councilmember Bunker.
I was trying not to be the first person to say the word Scientology, but I guess I have to utter it because that's what Hoyt and I believe the mayor was talking about. I want to first mention something about a non-Scientologist building owner. I've been hearing stories that businesses are closing because this person is not giving any long-term lease. I've heard at least one restaurant closed because of that, and another one may be on the verge of moving. And this is a situation where that person owns property that's not being developed or even kept up to code enough that we could put something in there, even if it's just an artist painting or teaching artwork. So we have to deal with that too, but specifically about Scientology, I continue to hear from people who say that they won't come downtown because of it. Ironically, last Friday, from some person who came up to my table at Downtown Pizza and said, I won't come down here because of Scientology. Well, you're here. You're here and it's fine. I would say that we should consider marketing Clearwater with Scientology in mind. There are two things that people think of when they think of Clearwater. It's the beach and it's the Church of Scientology's presence here. Now, there's a fascination with Scientology that has led to countless books, TV shows, movies. People are fascinated by it. So maybe Scientology tourism would be a way to go. I'm not saying we leap into it right now, but I think it's something to consider the same way that Salem embraced the witch trials, or there are cities across the country that have haunted tours of supposedly, buildings that have ghosts in them. It might be possible to, with the historical society, set up, the history of Scientology coming into Clearwater, trying to take over with Project Normandy, and make that a draw for people to come and get a tour. Kind of like a we dare you to come downtown with a guarantee that you won't be kidnapped. Just something I wanted to toss out there, but that's the perception. And I think we can't run from it because Scientology is still going to be here. And if they continue to do things like buy up all the properties and purposely leave them empty to sabotage the downtown redevelopment, well, unless we're going to try to seek some way to put a stop to that, I don't see how that's going to change.
So
I don't know if I'm ready to do Scientology tourism. I'm not that avant-garde, I guess. Are there other questions, comments? Councilmember Beckman, you're muted. And then
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay. Thank you. I apologize for we had technical difficulties in this office as far as getting signals. But before I had to log off an iPad and log on the laptop, I had a note on, Amanda, you mentioned that there are properties that the CRA owns, and we're, looking for investors. Are we looking to sell or lease those properties, or what are our options?
The CRA is looking to sell properties.
Okay. They will not lease. It's a sell or nothing.
We're not opposed to leasing, but the CRA technically right now will only be in existence for 13 more years. And then the county approval of this redevelopment area expires, as well as the city. And that's not to say you couldn't go and ask to extend it, all those things. But I mean, our purpose is to restore functioning of a private market. We are not here to hold and trust affordable housing. We're not here to run businesses, right? We want to get it into the hands of the private market and help them be successful.
Is a list of those properties available on our website?
It's not. We do have 3 of them that with a call for letters of interest right now, but there's only 5. So
5 total properties?
Yeah.
That are for sale?
No, one's under environmental remediation. The other one is a potential site for City Hall. So we're not advertising that one right now until we know where City Hall will go. And then the remaining 3 are being advertised right now.
Okay. Tell me about the one for environmental remediation. Where is that one? It's
in the downtown gateway, and it's on Cleveland and San Remo, I believe it is. Or Green. It's next to the Idle Spur.
Okay. Are we in the process of cleaning it up?
Beckman, though, all of those properties were, expected to be sold. We bought the Econo Inn and the Royal Palm, which are on Cleveland, right across from Cleveland Plaza. Mm-hmm. And we bought those because they were a nuisance property. There were police calls there for drug deals, prostitution, other things. Consolidated those 2 properties. The community garden is on a portion of it now. And then the properties we bought on MLK were originally brownfields. And we were also trying to consolidate those to make them a more usable parcel. But I mean, I never expected that we would own these at this point.
Are we asking too much for them?
No,
fortunately, there hasn't been a lot of interest, I don't think. Ms. Thompson, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, one thing is, I think, that's why the city manager, sorry, speaking for you, Mr. Horn, separated out the CRA from economic development and housing, right? Redevelopment takes a very long-term, very specific focus. So getting that time and attention from staff, getting the properties cleaned up and ready to sell, and then finally generating enough market demand, right, enough of a brand to make it interesting for a developer to come in and build what you would like to see them build. Mm-hmm. But we are getting that interest now, and that was a big focus of mine when I started, right, is getting that going. Like we need to sell this property. We don't want to hoard land, right? We need to get it out on the market.
Mr. Horn.
Yes, Mayor, Council, a quick question. I know there is continuing frustration with vacant storefront properties. We are aware of people who have acquired these properties. Is there any council interest in incentivizing those property owners to actually do something? Now, when I say incentivizing, is the council interested in any way penalizing property owners who just sit on their property and they do not develop it? I know in some cities, in certain areas, that they communicate an expectation to property owners that they are expected to develop their properties or to get business going, but I don't believe, at least our CRA trustee or even city council members, since we were in both hats, have ever really expressed a perspective on this approach. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not assuming anything, but I think Amanda could benefit knowing kind of how you feel about that.
Ms. Aiken, can you give us some ideas on how that would be done legally?
I can provide you with a memo before your next meeting. We looked at several issues relating to fines, penalties, etc. But there are some legal limitations on what we can do, and we can go over that for you before your next meeting or for your next meeting.
Vice Mayor, you had your hand up. You're muted.
Yeah, I think we've been frustrated a long time, not only with the new property owners, but with the old ones, not fixing their properties up and doing some, rent programs that encourage turnover instead of, getting somebody in there to help their business. So I would like to see something from the city attorney on what we could do to possibly remedy that situation, something that would maybe force these property owners to do something.
And I'm assuming you're talking beyond code enforcement, because of course we do currently do code enforcement on the properties.
No, I think we're talking beyond code enforcement. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I am very sensitive to private property rights.
As is the legislature.
And so am I. I'm a property rights guy. But to me, when you buy something for speculation or you sit on something in an area that has a CRA and wants development, I mean, you're hampering the development and the promotion of that area. So, I think that we should be doing something to, other than just sitting and waiting, because I think they could outweight us on these things. So I'd be interested to see what we can do.
Well, it's a little bit carrot and the stick, and I mean, hopefully we could use both. Councilmember Bunker?
Isn't this some of what St. Pete did? Saying there's going to be daily fines if you don't get something in the buildings? Something?
That's really for the city attorney to come back and give us some guidance on. I want to make certain that we're on solid legal ground. Otherwise, we could be opening up a can of worms that we really don't want. But Councilmember Hamilton?
Well, like I've said before, I've always been a very, very strong proponent of property owner rights. If you own the property, you have the right to develop it any way you desire within parameters that are set by the city, and zoning requirements and everything else. However, the flip side, the other side to that coin is there's also responsibility to being a private property owner. And I'm willing to discuss and look into anything we can do to make property owners realize you have a right to own this property, but you also have a responsibility when you do own this property. And I'm willing to look at any and all possibilities to kind of stir it a little bit and get some action going.
And in our case, we have some property owners that have capital, that have funding, and we have many property owners that do not have cash in the bank. So you're looking at really steep cost, right, to renovate those spaces, to bring somebody in. So what we continue to work on is how do we find other financial institutions, other investment partners, right, or businesses that are capitalized to partner with those property owners, because the CRA can't fund the build out of every single space. And that's been one of our struggles, right, is finding those other investment partners.
Okay, so Ms. Aiken, I am hearing Ms. Beckman.
Yeah, I have a question, a follow-up with what Amanda just said. So I too was thinking about carrot versus stick as far as incentives versus penalties to get these property owners to move a bit. But you know, what you just said, Amanda, was some of our property owners don't have funds to develop this piece of property or whatever. Are you privy to their financial, you know, holdings and standings that you know that? I mean, how do we know that? Is that just their word? Because I'd hate to be incentivizing with a bunch of carrots when these people are sitting on a bunch of money. You know what I mean? I just, it's frustrating that there have been so many properties empty for so long, and these people certainly have enough money to pay property taxes and insurance and sit there and let them, you know, drag down our downtown. I certainly don't want to offer some kind of financial incentive to those type of people that have the means and are just kind of waiting it out. So how accurately do you know property owners' financial standings?
Well, I mean, I do only know what they tell me. I haven't done, you know,
Because
investigation.
that's private information pretty much, isn't it? I mean,
Right. And then there's also, you know, are you dealing with kind of rational actors,
yeah.
people who are behaving rationally or irrationally? Because it doesn't, for property owners who continue to not invest in their property, you know, I don't know what the rational reason for that is other than a tax write-off, or
Mm-hmm.
right, they have enough money to just skate by in the minimum, and they're waiting out to pass it on to their children or to get a windfall lottery payday that
Mm-hmm.
they imagine in their minds. Yeah.
But I see you, Councilmember Bunker. There is a philosophical, and hopefully we're going to get that work session scheduled. But something you just raised, Councilmember Beckman, I think does go to some of the philosophical discussions that we've been talking about having. And I just want to make sure people understand there can be a disconnect. You said, I don't want to help people out that already have a bucket of money.
Mhm.
Some of those people who have a bucket of money will say the metrics for downtown do not work, as Ms. Thompson already pointed out what we need to get to for rent per square foot for a private developer to come in and expend their own money. Most of those people with bigger money are sophisticated enough to do a proper assessment of the downtown. And they may not do something until either the market can bear it or they get an incentive that gets them to the point where it's worthwhile for them to take a risk. I just want to point that out.
I appreciate that. And I know we'll have a discussion later, but there is also a profit margin and what profit somebody's looking for. How big of a profit are they looking for? And, you know, that's a personal call with different individuals and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Bunker.
Well, I just wanted to point out that some of those folks who bought property on behalf of Scientology, or they're just Scientologists who bought the property, they paid 2, 3, 4 times the assessed value. So I think it'd be hard to say that they don't have any money when they can pay cash to you know, sweep up all these properties. Also, I would like to ask, is there any way that we could put a limit on how much any nonprofit could own in the downtown area? It seems to me that the downtown, there should be some rules restricting it to restaurants, shops, you know, things that make a downtown vibrant. If there are going to be more pop-up stores like the Way to Happiness and taking up a city block, well, that gives a certain feel to the downtown that can't be avoided. And it seems to me that we should be able to say, okay, you're here. We're not going to chase you out of town or anything like that, but let's make this a business district if that's what we want. business.
Ms. Aiken?
Yes, sir. There are constitutional issues with requiring people to either have or not have a particular religion in order to own property. So again,
I'm not saying that. Oh, sorry.
you had raised this issue previously, and so we have taken a look at that, and I will include that in the memo that we send to you.
So let me, what I'm hearing from the council is they would like to have the legal department look at some things that we can use to incent people or potentially to fine them and come back to us at the next meeting. I had asked that we eventually do some formal scientific surveys of people around the greater downtown area, not necessarily just residents of Clearwater. Because if you look at Dunedin, if Dunedin were only drawing people from Dunedin, they would not be as successful as they are. So I think the radius needs to be greater than just Clearwater. But I would like to get some statistics and some anecdotal evidence of what keeps people away. I think we know Scientology is certainly one of the factors, but I want to be able to measure that over time and see if perceptions are in fact changing. Is that something that the rest of the council supports or not?
Yeah, I do.
I've got you on different screens, so I'm kind of going back and forth. I'm sorry, I can't get the 5 council members. Councilmember Hamilton and Albritton, are you good with that? Okay.
I'm good.